Has anyone ever had a panic attack so severe that it feels like you're actually going to die? Because that's exactly what a panic attack feels like. It is not the same thing like having an anxiety attack. A panic attack and an anxiety attack, it's two completely different things. I'm gonna share with you my story and what happened to me and how I was able to recover and conquer this. Now, let's go back to 13 years ago because this is exactly when this happened, and I remember the exact time it happened. It was a very hot day in May, and I wasn't feeling my best. Maybe it was seasonal allergies. Maybe I was having a minor cold. Who knows? There's a lot of allergies going around May. But no matter what was causing this, I just wasn't feeling great, and I was feeling run down, and I wanted to feel better. So I went and I took some medicine with pseudoephedrine inside. Pseudoephedrine is similar to ephedrine, which basically opens your pathway so you can breathe a little bit better. And a lot of people like to take it for fat burning purposes, like in the bodybuilding community, for example, which I don't take it for this reason whatsoever. Now, it didn't really help much, so I went and took a coffee as well. A black coffee, I believe it was a medium cup, but it didn't really help me that much either. I figured caffeine might help me because I'm not a regular caffeine drinker, but in this case, combining caffeine with pseudoephedrine would actually make a difference, but it didn't, and I wasn't still feeling my best. I was feeling a little more piped up. I was still feeling run down. So what did I do? I remember when I was on vacation a few years back, I took some supplement called Redline Extreme by a company called VPX. If you guys remember that supplement, it's a crazy supplement. It contains 300 milligrams of caffeine, yohimbine, norepinephrine, a lot of other stuff that basically makes you go insane. So I figured this is going to do the job. So I normally take 1/3 of a bottle because it's very powerful and there's 300 milligrams of caffeine. So that day I took half. I kind of figured that it's gonna hit me a little bit harder because I'm not feeling, but I wasn't feeling it. I was still feeling normal. Like, why isn't nothing working today? I'm taking caffeine, I'm taking pseudoephedrine, I'm taking Redline Extreme, and it's still not helping me. I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take the whole bottle. And I took the whole bottle. And at that point, I was feeling, well, slightly awake. It actually did work to some extent, but not in a good way. What happened was I was sitting down and I was in my car and I started feeling this tingling sensation, which the yohimbine actually does this, which is in one of the ingredients. But however, this was a very different feeling. I actually felt spikes going in my body and my body started feeling very, very cold, like a freezing feeling that I never had before when I took an energy drink, which I rarely take them. So I'm looking at my arm and I have shivers coming out. So at that point, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Why am I freezing? I kind of figured maybe I have fever. You know, if you have a fever, your body fluctuates back and forth, you get the shivers, but this was very different. So I decided to get up and go for a walk. I get up, I try to go for a walk. At that point, my mind went completely blank and I couldn't think. I'm like, what the hell? My panic started happening. I started feeling worried. I started walking a bit, try to see what was going on. Maybe I needed to walk a little bit more. Maybe I was overstimulated because I was definitely stimulated at that point. So I'm walking and I could feel my heart rate racing so fast that I was looking at my chest, and my chest, you can actually see it moving back and forth at a very, very, very hard pace. Not just fast, but it was breathing very hard at a point that I can actually hear it in my ears. And it was a scary feeling because I never had that before. At that point, I go back in my car, I'm worried. I felt like I'm gonna have a heart attack. I swear I felt like I was dying at that point. I literally felt like I can't do nothing. It was a very, very, very scary feeling. My heartbeat was definitely beating above 160 because I do regular activities and I would bring my heart rate to 165s, 170s, 175, and I would feel okay, but this was different. This actually felt very different. That's the best I can explain to you, and I was very worried. So I actually called for an ambulance. I had my phone, I called for an ambulance, and I told them, I'm very worried, my heart rate's very fast. They started telling me if I took any drugs and all that stuff because this happens to people who take recreational drugs quite often. Now, Basically, they just wanted to make sure I didn't take anything, or if I did take something, they were prepared on what's going to happen. So I told them I took some cold medicine, some caffeine, and an energy drink. So they sent the ambulance over, and I remember they put an EKG test right away to make sure that there's nothing wrong with me. And by the way, this was about 25 minutes after it happened, so my heart rate would still not go down. So my heart rate was elevated for more than 25 minutes because I remember I was looking at my clock. So as soon as they put the EKG and they actually monitor my heart, I remember looking at the screen and my heart was beating at 210 beats per minute. That's 210. It would fluctuate between 195, 205, 180, 210, and it would stay there for about 10 minutes. It wouldn't go down. And I was looking at that on the screen. I'm like, looking at that alone is gonna make you wanna have a heart attack just looking at that, right? So they didn't wanna put me anything to sedate me. They didn't wanna bring my heart rate down because they wanted to make sure I didn't take anything that's gonna counteract the effect. So whatever that means, I was just listening to them, whatever they were telling me, but I was not really paying attention because I couldn't pay attention. I was too worried. So at that point, I'm in the ambulance. They're driving me. My heart rate's beating like crazy. They're doing all these tests on me. They're not telling me nothing, right? So by the time I get to the hospital, they took a blood test to make sure I didn't really take anything because they didn't want to give me nothing that's going to counteract with whatever I was using. So at that point, they just, everything was fine. After the blood test, they made me calm down. Everything was normal. Everything was normal. So this happened about 2 hours after I was brought into the hospital. They did a blood test, an EKG test, everything that has to do with my heart, my blood levels, and everything came back to be normal, believe it or not. So they put me in this liquid and they calmed down my heart rate, and my heart rate would stay between 120 and 135. I can't recall, but it's almost like I was doing low intensity cardio. And that's exactly what happened. And they calmed me down. They told me that I had a panic attack because my body was overstimulated by stimulants, right? From that caffeine, the pseudoephedrine, and the energy drink. But it didn't feel right. It actually felt very, very different because they told me I can go home that day. They told me everything is normal. Don't worry about it. Just don't take any stimulants again and you're gonna be fine. But as soon as I got up to walk, to go home, my heart would shoot up to 160, 170 just by doing nothing. And I'm freaking out at that point. I literally go back to the hospital right after I walked out. Why? Because I'm worried. I'm telling them that my heart goes to 160, 170, and it doesn't want to go down. I remember I was wearing my Polar heart rate monitor and I was looking at it. I'm like, what the hell? Is this thing busted? So they tell me it's fine. We did a test. That's how panic attack works. After, your heart rate is going to be racing at a very high level because your adrenaline is still going to be high. Give it a day or two, your heart is going to settle, but you're not in danger. Everything is fine. It's a panic attack. That's what a panic attack actually is. And that's what happened. I go home. I'm driving. I'm in a state of panic again. I'm in a red light, I'm panicking, my heart rate shooting up. At that point, I got so pissed, I took off my watch, I put it down, and that's it. I didn't think about anything, right? I kind of figured everything is fine. When doctors tell you everything is fine, you kind of figured it's fine, and everything else is in your head. Because a lot of panic, it is gonna be in your head. So that's what happened. I go home. Now I'm sitting down, trying to do whatever I'm doing, but I'm worried at the same time. So I try to eat something. I'm eating and I can't eat because I'm panicking at that point. I want to mention by the time I went to the hospital and by the time I went home, it was around a 12-hour frame. So I was there at like 9 o'clock in the morning and I was basically back home at 8:30, 9 o'clock. So just to give an idea how long it was from my panic attack to the time this happened, from the time of my panic attack to the time I went home. So I can't eat. And now I'm worried that, oh my God, what's going on? Every time I'm eating, everything shoots up. My heart rate goes up. And I'm worried again. Now, it's not only my heart rate, I was feeling very lightheaded. I was feeling lightheaded that to the point that, what's going on with me? I can't focus. I can't concentrate. I can't think. I can't work. I can't make any phone calls. I can't do nothing. I'm just sitting there in a state of panic. And then I'm afraid to go to bed and I can't sleep at the same time because my heart is racing, I'm panicking, my adrenaline is shooting up, and I can't sleep at the same time because I'm worried that if I'm gonna sleep, something's gonna happen to me while I'm sleeping. I hear so many stories, right? And basically everything is freaking out at that point, right? So eventually my body did fall asleep for a couple of hours, I can't really recall. The next morning I get up, the exact same thing. My heart would shoot up to crazy levels. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Why is my heart shooting up? I slept. And I go, let me go for a walk. I go for a walk, my heart rate is shooting up at 160, 170. I am not exaggerating. 160, 170, I climbed up the steps, it was up to 180. I'm like, what the hell is going on? What's wrong with me? What did I do? I was worried. I go back to the hospital again. Again, they told me that they had my file there. That's a panic attack, sir. But to be sure, we're still going to give you a bunch of tests. Everything is fine again. They told me to go home and it's going to go away. It didn't go away. That day, I actually felt worse than I did the day before. And I tried working out. Every time I would work out, I would go in a very lightheaded state and I would start panicking. And I told myself, you know what? Maybe it's nothing. So then I start going with it. I started lifting some weights and I get another panic attack right there. It felt exactly like the panic attack I had that day in the car while I was taking the drinks and the caffeine. The exact same thing. So I'm sitting in the gym freaking out. Everybody's looking at me like I'm overdosing on something. And I'm just sitting there, don't know what's going on. I'm afraid to get up and walk, and it's hard to explain, but my mind was very blank. The earth was spinning. I was very lightheaded. My heart rate was at 180 plus, and it was breathing very, very, very hard. I remember someone was looking at me, and he was looking at my shirt, and my heart rate was so, he goes, what the hell did you take? I go, I didn't take nothing. I didn't take nothing. I haven't taken anything. And he goes to me, are you sure about that? He goes to me, you should go have your heart checked. Imagine looking at someone and you're looking at his heart going boom, 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 boom. That guy probably thought I was overdosing on something, right? Who knows? But it was nothing because I didn't take any stimulants that day. It was just my body reacting to an aftershock of having a panic attack. So at that point, I started doing a lot of reading on panic attacks, why it happens, the after effect, which can actually last for days, weeks, and months. I'm reading months. I'm like, what the hell am I going to go through months doing this? And then I couldn't work properly because back then I was running a training company and I could barely work. I could barely think. I could barely talk to people because I would panic each and every time, which I never had that problem before in the first place. I'm panicking thinking about this right now. But I'm just trying to explain to you as detailed as possible what happened. So a few days after, I'm trying to live with this. I kind of figured that, how do I stop this? I'm doing meditation. I know how to meditate, but meditation doesn't actually help. I'm not taking any stimulants. I'm not taking anything to spike my blood sugar. I'm not doing anything that I'm supposed to be doing to keep my heart rate from getting too elevated. So it didn't work. Nothing worked at that point. I started reading up on psychologists who specialize in panic attacks, panic disorders. So I started seeing one. And the story was the exact same thing. It's a panic attack, it's normal, and everything is fine. At that point, I kind of figured that maybe I had something that they cannot detect. So I go and do a stress test. My stress test, they put me on the treadmill, and I remember the treadmill, as soon as I started walking at 4 miles per hour, my heart shot up to 195. And the guy was looking at me that I was doing the stress test, and he tells me that, wow, did you take any energy drinks? I go, no, I had a panic attack a few days before, and right now this is what's happening. He goes to me, okay, but you need to get this checked out because it's not normal. I go, I did. I went to everyone. I did every test. I spent thousands of dollars on every specialized tests, and you know what? Nothing helped because everything is normal, I told him. He goes to me, okay, well, maybe get a second opinion. I'm like, I took a second, third, fourth, and fifth, and they all told me the exact same thing. I'm seeing a psychologist right now, so she can help me figure out what's going on. He goes to me, okay, but right now your stress test, for being very active as you are, I was in very good shape. My heart rate should not be going up. At that level, my heart rate should not be going up above 140 and maybe 130 because I can keep my heart rate at 135, 130 at 4 miles per hour. But this was insane. So I listened to what he told me. I started seeing the psychologist, and she told me to do a bunch of exercise tests. It's all in my head. You gotta mark down when this happens, when are you getting a panic attack, how to do something else instead. And I'm like, every single thing I do, my heart starts racing. I'm making breakfast, I'm getting up out of bed, I'm going for a walk. And whatever she told me to do to calm down my panic attacks, I was doing it, but they were actually going higher. She said, go for a walk. Every time I would go for a walk, my heart rate would jump up to like 160, 170 plus. Now, this went on for days. And I remember 3 weeks went by and I was feeling the exact same. And I told myself, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it. Whatever happens, whatever's meant to happen, it's gonna happen. At that point, I think I'm gonna die any minute now. It's a very scary feeling. It's a very, very scary feeling. And unless you actually had a panic attack with an after effect of a panic attack, it's hard to explain to you in a way that you're going to understand. But imagine you're always racing on adrenaline. You always feel your heart's gonna come out of your chest. And if you go for a very long sprint and you stop and you feel your heart racing, that's how you feel almost all day. It's a very scary feeling, very scary. The scariest feeling I've ever had in my life. But I went along with it. And after I realized that your body is gonna sense panic every time it does a simple movement. I did a lot of reading on how panic attacks work, how they developed, and I wanna mention that I did study psychology for years, so I do have some understanding. The only way to handle an after effect of a panic attack is if you teach your body that it's normal for it to experience some level of adrenaline and your body will balance out. I'm gonna explain to you in a way that's going to make a little bit more sense. Let's say you start working out at the beginning. At the beginning, when you start exercising and you've never exercised before, you feel like you're going to get a heart attack. You're hyperventilating, you're breathing, you feel you need so much time to recover until you get to your next set or your next sprinting session or your next HIIT session, whatever exercise you're doing at that point. But eventually after, it gets easier and easier and your body can handle it with ease. Well, a panic attack works the exact same way. That's what I learned by doing a lot of reading. So what I was doing was I was going along with it. I wasn't stopping like I was before, because every time you stop, the body is gonna accept it and it's gonna tell itself like, you know what, you're getting a panic attack. But at that point, you know what I did? When I was getting a panic attack, I remember I was doing the Stairmaster and I told myself, if my heart rate goes up to 165, 170, 175, I'm gonna bring it up to 200. I'm gonna stay there and I'm gonna go along with it even more. So basically, it's like I was facing my fear and going above it. And you know what happened? I felt like I was gonna die because my heart rate went up even higher and faster, but I didn't care because I kept on going. I lowered the level, but I stayed on. And eventually, my heart rate would stabilize like 190, 195, but I stayed there. I remember the first time I did it, I stayed there for about 11 minutes. I went down, and you know what? I felt accomplished. I felt like, wow, I actually did that. And I feel good that I've done that. I didn't stop. And I felt a sense of relief. Why? Well, because I was still alive. I didn't get a heart attack, and I felt good. I knew I could do this again. So I started walking, and the same thing. I was feeling blank, lightheaded, but I accepted it. I didn't let it bother me anymore. I didn't take any medication or anything for anxiety, because a panic attack, anything you take, it's gonna be short term. So I decided to let my body recover on its own. And I wanna mention that some doctors did recommend to take some anti-anxiety medications like Valium, Xanax temporarily, but I don't take none of that shit, because that shit is gonna give you a crazy rebound effect and they're very addicting. I kind of figured, let the body recover on its own, let me do it on my own. So the next day, I told myself I'm gonna do cardio on the exact same machine, and I'm gonna stay there. Then 20 minutes. Eventually, I was doing this every single day, and it took about 2 weeks for my body to start stabilizing again. And at that point, I'm like, wow. So that's how it works. You gotta conquer it. You know when they say you gotta face your fears? Well, when it comes to a panic attack, it's the exact same thing. You need to face your panic, which is a form of fear, and go above it. So if you feel you're gonna get a panic attack and you are getting one, keep doing what you're doing. Eventually, your body is going to adapt to it. And that's how my body adapted back to training. And once I adapted back to training, I was doing the exact same things with everything. So again, the trick was I was not slowing down when I was getting a panic attack or in a panicked state. I kept doing what I've always done, and my body eventually accepted this. And that's what I've been doing ever since. After a while, my body did go back to normal, and I felt normal, and it was a very great sense of relief. And I told myself, I'm gonna do more than I did before. So I wanted to break more records because I told myself, you know what? I'm gonna do something I've never done before. So I started doing more spinathons. I wanted to do a spinathon. So I wanted to do more activity than I did before. So I started doing more hiking. I started getting my body a lot more active. And eventually, after a couple of months, my resting heart rate was back to 46. I wanna mention, after my panic attack, my resting heart rate was never below 110. So by going 46, I knew right away everything was back to normal. My blood pressure was back to normal, my resting heart rate was back to normal, and everything was back to normal. And this took actually a little more than 6 months. It was a very long process, but eventually that's how I was able to recover. And that's the trick, I feel. I think people, when they feel something is coming up, they stop and they allow themselves to experience the attack. And it's not something that worked for me, it's something that worked against me. Now, that's my experience. Maybe your experience is not going to be the same as mine, but that's how I was able to recover. Now, I do not get panic attacks anymore. I occasionally still get some anxiety attacks. Like, I do suffer from anxiety. I've always had some anxiety over the years, but nothing crazy. An anxiety attack is not a panic attack. It's something that just goes away after a couple of minutes or maybe an hour or so. But a panic attack to that level, I have never gotten one ever since that day. And if I do feel one coming up, I know exactly what to do. And that's exactly what has worked for me. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this. And if you do suffer from panic attacks, or if you do have a panic attack story, feel free to share. Thank you for watching. Till next time.